Welcome to Icelandic history.
In the 8th century, Irish monks came to Iceland but were driven out by Vikings in the 9th. Ingolfur Arnarsson was the first to settle in the capital Reykjavik. He was the leader of the Vikings who colonized. 800 to 1050 was called the Viking Age. In 930, Iceland created a national assembly called the Althing. In the 11th century, they were converted to Christianity, but later led to religious toleration. In the 12th century, Iceland deteriorated due to lack of natural resources.
The Icelandic Commonwealth was undermined by feuding between clans, and the only way to keep peace was to submit to the Norwegian king. In 1218, a new constitution was drawn up, and in 1397, Denmark was unified with Norway, and the Danish king ruled over Iceland. In 1477, Christopher Columbus visited Iceland during his voyage. And in 1602, Denmark established a trade monopoly with Iceland, and in 1619 it became a joint stock company. In 1662, the Danish king enforced absolutism, and in 1783 there was devastation due to volcanic eruptions.
In 1787, the Althing was replaced with the Supreme Court. In 1814, Norway left the union with Denmark. In 1843, the Danish king recalled the Althing. In 1874, the new Danish king granted a new constitution. In 1918, the Kingdom of Iceland was established. In 1946, Iceland joined the United Nations. And then in 1949, they joined NATO. And in 1970, they joined the European Free Trade Association. In the late 20th century, they fought their only war, the Cod War. And in 1980, the first woman was elected president in the world.
Iceland visual arts is inspired by its outstanding surroundings and beautiful landscapes. Paintings, sculptures, jewelry, and glasswork are some of these examples. Reykjavik, the capital, is a center for art, and it is creative and energetic. Johannes Kjarval is a painter whose work is color-drenched, and Einar Johnson makes beautiful sculptures.
Icelandic poets produce a huge amount of work, especially considering only 350,000 people worldwide speak the language. This reflects the country's nearly 100% literacy rate. Current poets revert to more traditional verse and ask questions about lasting values and focus on themes about the possibility of human fellowship. This poem by Magnus Sigurdsson is called Daylilies and is an example of Icelandic poetry. The morning sun glitters on the crown of a daylily, a wellspring that fills, a cruet that empties each day.
The colors and design of the coat of arms allude to the flag of Iceland, as they're both blue and have silver-edged red crosses. The character, a bull, rock giant, griffin, and dragon represent the four protectors of Iceland. Each protector represents a part of Iceland. For example, the bull represents the northwest and the dragon the southeast. Overall, great respect is given to these four protectors, and it is law that Vikings should not have scary symbols on their ships to unnecessarily provoke the protectors.
One current event happening in Iceland right now is the fight against teenage drinking. They are taking an approach to lessen the risk factors on children. One way of doing this is instituting legal curfews. Children ages 12 and younger must be home at 8 in the winter and 10 in the summer, while 13 to 16-year-olds must be home at 10 in the winter and midnight in the summer. Parents sign agreements through schools or parental organizations to spend more time with their children and not allow unsupervised parties and events. They also are putting more funding into after-school activities such as sports and the arts.
Iceland has had equal pay laws since 1961, but they are currently making new laws that require companies to prove that they are not paying women any less than men. For the 9th year in a row, Iceland has had the best overall score on the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report. Women such as Miss Valdimir's daughter believe that Iceland has come a long way but is still far from equality. Male employers such as Benjamin Thorbergson believe that the law mandates smaller companies to collect records that are technically difficult to obtain. He believes that these laws should be left for the businesses to decide. This law makes Iceland the first country to legalize equal pay.
When Neil Armstrong became the first man to step foot on the moon, he'd already practiced bounding across the lunar surface here on Earth at a terrestrial analog site in Iceland. The island nation's basaltic rock is a close approximation of the moon rocks Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin collected, and so Iceland was an ideal place for training exercises. 40 years later, NASA has recently made 2 trips to Iceland where astronauts spent several days collecting geologic samples for future projects that NASA plans on completing.
One thing that really stuck out to me was that Iceland has the first female president in all of Europe. She was also the first female president in the whole world to be democratically elected. Vigdis Finnbogadóttir is a great example of a modern woman. She says she's really glad that she can inspire confidence in more Icelandic women.
I found it very interesting that Iceland has one of the highest literacy rates in the world. 99% of their population aged 15 and above can read and write. This makes them the 3rd most literate nation in the world. I think US can be inspired by this and help spread literacy ideals around the world.
Something I found admirable about Iceland was the landscape. I have grown up in California my whole life, so I'm only used to seeing beaches and palm trees. But Iceland's nature is so beautiful with the tall mountains, abundance of waterfalls, and fresh air from the greenery present.